Hi, Read 585, and welcome to week 12. Hopefully, you had a great spring recess and were able to spend some time with friends and family and relaxing, and are prepared to hit the ground running for just 5 short weeks left of this semester. This week, we are continuing on with Unit 3, focused on professional development, and taking a look at what makes for quality professional development. So let's start with some good news. I haven't gotten any good news from you lately, so I will share some of my own, and hopefully someone will shoot me an email for next week. But here are some photos taken recently in and around my school with my kindergarten through second graders. And my good news is that Therapy Dogs International is changing my students' lives and their reading habits. I think I may have alluded to this in a previous lecture, but I was reading, I think in the October edition of The Reading Teacher, my favorite journal, as you know, and there was an article about canine assisted reading programs and how they lower the student's affective filter by providing a non judgmental audience and increase their motivation. And one student in particular, he's a second grader. This is him here, is a changed man because of visits from, we actually have two dogs who visit us weekly. This is Sophie here and her handler Rosemary. And then over here is Alaska, a husky, and her handler Vanita. She comes every Tuesday and she comes every Thursday. But basically, this student in particular is a second grader and hasn't been very motivated to read. But since he knows he gets to read to Sophie and he needs to practice to read to Sophie, he's been going home and he's been actually reading more at home and asking to read more at home, and parents have given us the feedback that they don't know what's gotten into him because all he wants to do is read, read, read. So this was a fun idea I received from the reading teacher that I thought I would share. But Therapy Dogs International is who I contacted, and I had to fill out some paperwork, and then they posted the opportunity within their organization, and I received probably 10 phone calls, emails, etc. about different handlers within the area wanting to come in. We had 6 different ones, and then these were the two that kind of worked out best for us. So here's my second grade friend who loves spending time reading there, and then this is a small group of first graders who are taking turns reading to Alaska. So it's been a huge success at our school. Maybe it's something you can share at yours. So, wanted to go over some of the deadlines. Part 3 is now due April 9th. Yes, it is a Wednesday. We are diverging from our usual Saturday deadline. So, you get a few more days to do part 3. Assignment number 4, which is your professional development presentation, is due April 26th. That is a 20 to 30 minute presentation that will likely get posted on our course wiki so that others can view your hard work as well and maybe learn from you. Assignment number 2 is technically due May 3rd, but if you are someone who wants to get this done and turned in and crossed off your list, then I am going to put the link in the week 12 block and you could submit it as early as this week. And then our last large assignment is assignment number 5, which is the coaching activity where you will be watching some video of teachers in action and giving them some coaching tips. And that is our final assignment and it will be due on May. So that is really it for our key assignments. Assignment 3, part 3 should be done hopefully now, and assignment number 2, which is the professional documents, you likely have pretty close to being in their final state. So that just leaves the presentation and the coaching activity. activity, which are very doable in the next 5 weeks. Take a deep breath, don't stress. Let's talk a little bit more about upcoming assignments. This week there are 2 articles. The first is titled Professional Development for Literacy, Who's in Charge? It comes to us from the reading teacher and it is legitimately only 3 pages long. I actually really love this article and it suggests everybody read it. It follows 2 schools, School A and School B, both at risk of being program improvement and not meeting AYP, and they both implement a series of professional development, and then the following year one makes AYP and one does not. So it is a tale of 2 schools, and one I think you should read as a cautionary tale and something you can learn from. The other article comes from the Journal of Adolescent and Adult Literacy. It is titled Investigating Content Area Teachers' Understanding of a Content Literacy Framework. It is geared more toward the secondary level. Also a great read. It is 11 pages, no, I think it's 8 pages, and it follows a grouping of schools who are implementing the reading strategy of question-answer relationships in their content areas and the effectiveness of the professional development done with those schools. There is no participation activity this week. This will help you put some time into assignment number 4, the presentation, and it will allow me time to get fully caught up on the grading. So the assignments due this week are technically none, but I do recommend you begin work on assignment number 4, the professional development presentation, which is due April 26th, and that will be here before we know it. And then finalize your professional documents for assignment number 2. Like I said, you can submit them as early as this week and get that crossed off your list. Let's talk a little bit about assignment number 4. I am sensing some stress surrounding this assignment, and really you do not need to be stressed. Yes, it is a 20 to 30 minute presentation, but it's completely manageable, and even though it's no longer a group presentation, I think it will actually be easier on you to just work independently instead of having to collaborate in the, digital age. So, for assignment 4, the first step is to have a plan, which given assignment number 3, part 3, SWOT analysis, you should have a very clear plan. You've already looked at the data, you've thought about the data, you've analyzed the data, and hopefully have identified a goal for your school. So review the context, summative, formative data, plan for your professional development presentation. Once you do that, you want to create a SMART goal to improve your school, and I will be talking about SMART goals in the second part of this week's lectures. Third, you want to develop your professional development, that it is aligned with your goal for school improvement. And then fourth, create and narrate your PowerPoint. So that's it, that's all you have to do. You will, though, have many responsibilities for your role, and I came up with some rough time allotments. So within your presentation, first you should set a purpose. This is only about 2 to 3 minutes of your presentation. Establish the need for this staff development, share the data that led you to choose the focus, and you can refer to your SWOT analysis as well. Then you're going to provide the research that supports why this is a beneficial focus, and that should only be about 2 or 3 minutes, a slide on that. Next, you will move into the overview. This could be about 5 minutes where you're going to review the actual plan for your school site, reviewing the role of the various stakeholders, what's going to happen each month. Is there going to be whole group PD? Is there going to be teams, getting professional development? Are there going to be team meetings? Is there going to be one-on-one coaching? Is there going to be peer feedback and observations? What exactly is the professional development going to entail? How's that going to get rolled out over the course of the year? Remember, we're trying to move away from the, drive-by PD or the, 3-hour workshop that doesn't ever extend beyond the 3-hour workshop. So you would explain that in the overview. The meat of your presentation is going to be actually providing some instruction. So that would be about 10 to 15 minutes where you're going to highlight a strategy or something that's going to encapsulate the larger goal. And then last, check for understanding, 2 to 5 minutes as part of your wrap up. Find a way to gauge what was learned in your session. So basically, you can think of this as a checklist of all the things you need to include, starting at the beginning of your presentation with setting the purpose and the end of your presentation with checking for understanding. Again, it should be about 20 to 30 minutes, so you really do need to be concise and limit the information you are presenting. It should not be 2 hours. There is a rubric on titanium that you can use, so please look to that to give you the expectation for this. There are also examples of each of the parts on titanium. Keep in mind, this is when a different individual did each of the different roles. So they have a very extensive example because that's the only piece of the professional development that they are doing. So you would want to scale back and just refine down to the most important points. So since we have a little time right now, I'm going to show you some sample PDs that I have done in the past to give you some idea. They don't all follow that framework that is uh, here, where you're setting the purpose, buying them in with research, providing a plan, giving them instruction, and then checking for understanding. But they do somewhat align to this and hopefully will be useful for you to see. So here's a PD I did titled Not Just Think, Pair, Share, Cooperative Structures for Active Engagement, and it was focused largely on the work of Spencer W. Kagan and Kagan's cooperative learning structures. So with this PD, I had a little agenda of what we would be doing. I know that when I am a learner, I always appreciate knowing what my objective is and how I'm going to achieve that objective and what the plan is going to be. So you can see this is about a 30, 50 hour. This is an hour long PD. You do not need to be doing an hour long PD, but here is the agenda for that. I usually include agreements at the beginning up front so that I can communicate things like, if you do need to use technology, to please step outside, to not hold side conversations, and to respect the attention signal. I also like to begin with some sort of opening activity where participants are hooked into the content, where they're interacting with each other, they're interacting with the content. It's very engaging, interactive, that kind of thing. So for this PD, I actually started with the inside-outside circle, which is one of Kagan's cooperative learning structures. So we did that to build community. Then I went into other ways to build classroom community before giving them the purpose setting here. So, what are cooperative structures? Why are they important? This audience was very focused on rigor and providing rigorous instruction as an organization. So I talked about how the cooperative learning structures fit into their definition, their framework for rigor that they were working from. So that would be the purpose setting that I did. As far as research goes, I cited myself as research. I don't recommend always doing that, but then I also had real research here as well. And then I gave some background on Spencer W. Kagan and his work. Because of the nature of this professional development, I didn't do that next piece of presenting the plan for PD at the school site because this really was just one PD that I was giving in isolation. It wasn't part of an ongoing plan, so I didn't have a plan, whereas here is where you would put your plan. So then I jumped into the learning. I found that participants love seeing things in action, and the best way to do that is to do a video. You could also model it on the spot. I think as a presenter, I don't always like to do that. It's a little awkward. I'd rather show a video of myself or of a teacher I filmed. So here is the video viewing protocol. I then showed a video of myself modeling the fan and pick cooperative learning structure, and then I showed a video of another teacher doing numbered heads. Before I turned it over and had them participate, they were each given a cooperative learning structure, and they had to essentially, it was kind of like expert groups, they had to present that structure then to the group at the end. So that's one idea for how you could kind of start and run your PD. Starting with the purpose setting, why are we doing this? Here's the research, and then you would do your plan before jumping into the learning. Let's see if there's anything else. I always like to go back, to something from the beginning to revisit, provide contact information, and then share any resources that might be helpful. So that is one PD I've done to give you some ideas. Another one comes from, I showed you my plan for the writing PD, but this is our writers workshop PD that we did with staff in August at the beginning of the year. I think I told you about how I, as the literacy specialist, assembled a writing task force with a representative from K1, 2, 3, and 4, 5. We were a K5 school, so I had every two grade levels represented there to put together our plan. So with this one, we started out with a hook or an activator. I gave them I actually modeled a writing practice called a writer's talk, and I did one on Victor Villaseñor. So I shared some information about this writer, and then had the teachers do a quick write in their writer's notebooks, which are two other writing best practices that I wanted to model. So they had 6 minutes to do a quick write, either as and I incorporated choice, very important. Options included your journey as a writing teacher, positive or negative, the life of Victor Villaseñor, and then your response to the quote, writing like life itself is a voyage of discovery. And so we really took this idea of writing being a voyage, a journey of discovery, and that was kind of the theme for this PD. I love having themes for PD. I think one one I did had something to do with like not your grandma's reading lesson or something, and I had like Denny's coupons taped under the chairs. I don't know, I've done some very outside of the box things, but I think that has helped to make the PD very memorable. So the theme of this was, going from the dirt path to the superhighway and how we're going to bridge that with this PD. So then with the purpose setting, I didn't do a lot of sharing of the research here or of the data. I used kind of more national statistics and data from the US versus school specific data, since this was only our second year, and honestly we didn't collect a lot of writing data our first year, which is why we needed this PD to get on board with common assessments for writing. So here was some of my purpose setting, and then I went into the goals for writing instruction at our school so that we could get to this superhighway. And then I rolled out the plan of future professional development topics, what that would look like, when it would be, and the time commitment so that they could have that plan. Then I talked about the writing schedule of the scope and sequence for units for the year. We talked about the writing instructional guidelines. Then I jumped in by teaching them about writer's notebooks, and then I gave them some resources for writer's notebooks. We had already practiced doing a quick write in a writer's notebook. Then I went into writer's talk, some resources for that. They tried it out, quick writes. So this was a full day PD. This was a lot of learning that happened. Um, and then we went back to this was the closing. Who knows what I said for this, but in any case, those are some samples of some PDs I've done, and there are some other samples done by Read 585 students online as well. So join me back for part 2 where we are going to go over what makes for quality professional development.